Welcome, horror fans, to the Script to Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favourite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favorite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will.
And I'm Lee.
And it's good to be back, Lee. Very happy to be back. So what have you been watching this week?
Oh man, this week I was lucky enough to catch Nosferatu at the weekend. And now my life is narrated by an internal monologue of Bill Skarsgård's amazing Transylvanian drawl. How about you, my friend? Oh, that was awful.
Absolutely.
So bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't caught loads lately because I've been super busy, but I did actually go to the cinema and watch Nosferatu myself, which I have to say, dude, I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was so much fun. And I actually got to go with my sister as well, which is way cool. Like, I haven't been to the cinema with my sister for so long. So, yeah, it was really, really cool to go and see that. Really enjoyed it.
Nice, nice. So, what is up for dissection this week?
Well, Lee, this week we will be unpacking Tremors.
Oh man, the ultimate B movie, B for badass.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? I love Tremors. So let's get into it, Lee. Let's get into it. So, released October 19th, 1990, Tremors struggled at the box office, bringing in a little over $16.5 million on an $11 million budget. However, the movie found a new life in the home video market, almost tripling its box office in VHS purchases and rentals.
I miss blockbusters so much.
Me too, dude. I used to love blockbusters.
Yeah.
But I know we have Netflix and all the other streaming services, but there is just not quite the same, is it? As perusing
No,
the blockbuster aisles.
there was just something magical about it, wasn't it? It was kind of like
It's
the Toys
amazing.
R Us for like movie nerds. I mean, I remember renting this out from the local video store and watching it with my mates during a sleepover, and just being blown away by how great it was.
Oh, it's so amazing. Sounds like good times.
Oh, yeah, good times indeed. Anyway, we're going to be comparing the movie to a copy of the script dated 21st of June, 1988. Weighs in at 108 pages and is written by S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddox. And the script is also listed under the working title Beneath Perfection.
And that's actually a pretty good title, isn't it?
You think that's a good title? Check this out. I found out the other day that the German title for this film translates as In the Land of the Rocket Worms.
And that, I have to say, that is a positively amazing title. That's absolutely amazing. As always, folks, remember we are using these scripts purely for educational purposes, and all copyrights reside clearly with its owners. That said, buckle in as we head back to the sleepy town of perfection where nothing ever happens as we take a deep dive into Tremors. A group of small town residents must band together to survive when giant, deadly underground creatures begin attacking their isolated desert community, Lee. We open on some gorgeous desert scenery, a great clifftop view where our hero, Valentine Val McKee, has chosen to take a piss. It's a memorable introduction, to be sure.
Indeed, take notes of those rocks to the left because they will play a big part in the movie's climax.
Make a note, folks, make a note. Val is, of course, played by Hollywood legend Kevin Bacon. Val imitates a stampede to wake up his good buddy Earl Bassett, played by the utterly unflappable Fred Ward.
Man, that Stampede, Frank, is going to come up later too. Just brilliant foreshadowing.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? So there's also a cool little moment where they each attempt to have a smoke, but one has the cigarettes and the other one has the lighter.
Yeah, I mean, this is played up a lot in the script. It's kind of a running theme that individually these guys can't accomplish shit, but you put them together and the job always gets done.
Yeah, such a cool little character touch, isn't it? So that's the same as the script, Lee.
Largely, there's a little extra dialogue on screen from Val, but the key difference is that in the script we have a whole different opening scene.
Ah, okay, really? What's that?
Yep, on the page we open with a scene featuring Edgar. Old Fred and Justine the donkey. Poor Justine is tragically ultimately killed by some unseen presence, which those of us who've seen the film will already be aware of. It kind of serves as a cold open of sorts. There's a couple of cool little plot points seeded in, like the fact old Fred has an abundance of carrots because
Mm.
for some reason there haven't been any gophers or jackrabbits around this time of year. And the scene ends with Edgar searching for his precious donkey's killer, but there is nothing for miles around.
Mm. So Val and Earl ponder their status as they string a barbed wire fence. Incidentally, Val is not good with a hammer.
It takes him like 20 shots to hit that nail. Yeah, it's pretty on point with the script. A little dialogue about stampedes has been moved from this scene on the page to the opening scene in the film. Yeah,
So yeah, that helps to set up the ending with all the foreshadowing in one place, I guess.
yeah, good point that it does.
Val and Earl discuss their weekly job list. It's pretty clear by their dialogue that they are living day to day out here. Val spots someone working out in the desert. It's the new grad student, and it's a girl, Lee, a girl. Obviously,
Girl.
there aren't a lot of romantic options out in Perfection. So Val hits the gas and lists off the parameters for his ideal woman, all of which quickly becomes clear Rhonda Lebec is not.
Yes, and Rhonda, of course, is played by the adorable Finn Carter.
Absolutely adorable in this. Rhonda is sporting a wonderfully character driven sunblock covered nose, asks if there's been any mining or blasting in the area, as her seismographs have been reading off the scale.
Hate it when my seismographs read off the scale.
Me too, Lee. Me too. But the boys, they're not aware of anything, are they? So there's a couple of cool lines here that show Val is a lot smarter than his appearance and circumstance would have you believe. Back on the road, Earl berates Val for his strict taste in women.
Yeah, there's a line in the script that isn't on screen about Earl always holding out for a woman who looks like Miss July 1968. And if memory serves me correctly, this plot thread is actually picked up in the sequel, where actually Earl does end up with the aforementioned Miss July 1968.
Oh wow, no way. That's a good point. That's a good thing actually, Lee. So like, I mean, this franchise does have a longevity to it. So tell us a little bit about the longevity of this franchise, Lee.
They made like 7 movies, a TV show, and they also shot a pilot for another series with Kevin Bacon, which was criminally never picked up.
Yeah, that's really sad, isn't it? That would have been amazing. But yeah, the longevity of this series, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? So Val and Earl, they drive into the wonderfully characterful and isolated city of Perfection. Population 14 and a sign shot through with bullets. They pull up outside Chang's market and head inside, but not before warning a local a-hole, Melvin, against damaging their truck.
Yeah, in the script, it was originally called Phams, as the owner was intended to be Vietnamese, but after Victor Wong was cast, he asked for the character to be Chinese instead, and changes were made accordingly. And thus, we have Walter Chang.
Mm.
And Victor Wong, of course, you'll no doubt recognize from Prince of Darkness, Big Trouble in Little China, and The Golden Child.
Also at the counter with Chang are Heather and Bert Gummer. Heather is played by country singer Reba McEntire, who viewers may have recently seen in the Young Sheldon TV show.
And Bert, of course, is played by Michael Gross. Best known at the time for the series Family Ties, Gross would go on to become the frontman of the Tremors series, returning for all the sequel movies and the TV show.
That's absolutely amazing. Heather and Bert are depicted here as a pair of survivalists who have moved to perfection to survive the coming apocalypse, of course. There are some really cool scenes of familiarity between the characters here. Chang pops a couple of beers as soon as he hears Val and Earl pop up, and there's an almost familial sense of camaraderie between everyone. Chang's ice cream freezer starts to conk out, rattling and screaming loudly.
Well, that's going to pop up again later.
Yeah. We get a cracking line from Val here referencing some interplay from earlier with Earl. We plan ahead. That way we don't do anything right now. And if it isn't one of the most accurate descriptions of procrastination and writer's block, I don't know what is, Lee.
Yeah, I'm feeling personally attacked right now. We get an extra little moment in the script where Val notes Chang has ripped them off, selling cattle skulls he brought from them for an insane markup. This is going to be referenced later in the movie. There's also a scene outside where Melvin sets off Bert's car alarm, leading to the revelation that Melvin's parents are in Vegas, which is a seemingly regular occurrence.
And that answers the question of Melvin's missing parents.
Yeah, and also kind of explains why he's such an asshole too.
So back to Rhonda now, and she's getting some crazy readings. So she packs up her truck and heads off. Unbeknownst to her, something beneath the ground is stalking her.
Yeah, there's a really cool worm's eye view and like the sight of the dirt flowing after her. I always really love these shots.
Oh, they're great. They're so effective. Tell us how they pulled these shots softly.
Well, apparently they towed a buried buoy behind a truck.
Ah, well, there you go. I love these examples, like where, the financial constraints force kind of filmmakers to get inventive. It's simple, but it's so effective.
Yeah. I mean, this scene isn't actually in the script until later. I think the reason being that the whole monster reveal was originally going to be kept until further in the film to make you think that perhaps a crazy person had done this. But the studio wanted to market the film as a monster movie, so some of the scenes were reordered.
So back on screen, Val and Earl finish clearing Nestor's garbage. Take note of the bulldozer and the big rusted truck trailer here because they'll be coming in handy later.
Yeah, in the script we get an extra scene with Nestor, who can't afford to pay the boys until next month. And there's also another cool little character moment where Earl can't find the keys to the truck, only for Val to realize that they are in fact in his pocket.
Back on screen, and the boys are cleaning out Melvin's septic tank when the bedraggled hose splits, covering them in all, well, you know what it covers them in.
Yeah, in the script, the septic tank belongs to Viola, an old lady never seen or mentioned in the film, and her hyper-aggressive dog.
But it's the last straw for Val and Earl. After cleaning up, they pack up their truck and hit the road, Lee. It's not long before they are waylaid, though, by Nancy Sterngood and her daughter Mindy. She offers big money and beer if the boys will build her a pottery kiln, but they resist the temptation. Also, we have a little Mindy, played by Ariana Richards of Jurassic Park fame. She is going for the record on her pogo stick whilst listening to her 80s Walkman. The former handymen head out of town, hoping never to look back.
Yeah, we get a cool little montage of scenes in the script of the boys bidding farewell to various elements of perfection on their way out of the city. And then we're back up to speed as
They spot someone sitting up in an electrical pylon. At first, they think it's an electrician, but Val recognizes the man as Edgar Deems.
and this is the same Edgar from the unfilmed opening scene.
Another cool character moment as our heroes don't even contemplate leaving him up there.
It's kind of impossible not to like these guys, isn't it?
If you want to scare, make us carely. So Val loses another round of rock, paper, scissors and heads up the pylon. Upon reaching Edgar, it quickly becomes clear the old man is dead.
Yeah, in the script, one of his boots is missing and a trouser leg has been torn off. I think it's a shame they didn't keep that in because I think it would have been a nice little touch of foreshadowing there.
Yeah. And I'm amazed he didn't fall off, Lee.
Now, but if you look really carefully, you can see that he's actually used his belt to fasten himself to the pylon.
Well, that's a really cool detail. To be honest, I never even noticed that before. Val and Earl take Edgar to the doctor in town, Dr. Jim, and his wife Megan. We learn that the old guy passed away from dehydration, meaning that he'd been sitting up there for 3 or 4 days before he died, Lee.
In the script, we get something of an introduction to the doctor and his wife. It's made clear that they have just arrived in town recently and are in the process of building their new home, something Val and Earl have clearly helped them with in the past.
We head to old Fred's place now, and his sheep are in a bit of a panic. With no threats in sight, old Fred just keeps on tending his garden. There's a great shot of his scarecrow slowly leaning to one side before Fred is violently attacked from below. At the same time, Rhonda's seismographs are going off the scale. So our heroes head past old Fred's place and quickly come to a stop after spotting the bloody remains of Fred's sheep.
Yeah, in the script, they notice his aggressive dog isn't barking, but otherwise it's pretty much all the same. Also, there's a cool little set design thing here. I love the way old Fred's roofing is literally being held down with rocks. I think that's just such a cool little touch.
There's a lot of great little details in the sets in this movie, isn't there? Val and Earl look for Fred, but only manage to find his hat, which has been discarded on the ground. But when they pick it up, they find the old man is still wearing it, Lee.
Such a nice little scare, great setup and execution, and makes perfect sense for the movie as well.
So Val and Earl race back to town to warn the others, stopping briefly to alert some road workers that a crazy killer is on the loose. The workers don't take them too seriously until one of them jackhammers through something beneath the ground, and the heavy tool is wrenched away like a harpoon in a whale. The poor guy is caught in the hose and dragged over a ridge where he vanishes with a scream. His buddy runs to his aid, but is buried in a pretty pitiful looking rock slide.
Yeah, I mean, in the script, his demise is a lot more brutal, but it also reveals the worms much earlier in the film, so I can kind of understand why they cut it. But, check it out.
But now there is only silence. Howard crashes through the brush. All he finds is the torn end of the air hose, which suddenly sucks down into the ground. He's momentarily staggered by an awful smell, but forces himself to keep looking. He lets the pry bar drag on the ground. Then something, it looks like a mouth or a horrid beak, shoots out of the ground and grips the pry bar with uncanny strength. Howard drops his weapon and scrambles madly away. He clambers back onto the road, but almost immediately cracks form in the pavement around him. More beak things break through the asphalt between him and his truck. He dashes across the road, scrambling up the embankment. He clings precariously to a tree root, looking down. Where'd they go? Suddenly the dirt around him begins to bubble. Several hungry beaks break through and grab him, yanking him headfirst into the embankment. Then the embankment gives way, crashing down onto the road, taking with it a nearby telephone pole and snapping the lines. Now, back at Chang's store, we're introduced to Nesta and Miguel as Val imparts the news of Fred and Edgar's demise. The phones are down, so with no way to call for help, Val and Earl head for the neighboring town of Bixby.
There's two really great yet subtle moments here, which again highlight the kind of the synchronicity between these two guys. I mean, Val goes to use the phone, but Earl is the one with the change. And then Val goes to open the truck, but Earl is the one with the keys. It's really subtle and it's easy to miss, but again, it just highlights the brilliant dynamic between these two lead characters.
So, of course, our intrepid duo find the way out of the town blocked and the gruesome remains of the road workers. The truck snags on something while Earl hurriedly loads a pistol before eventually forcing themselves free and back to town.
Yeah, I just want to point out Earl's complete lack of gun safety here. He's got that pistol pointed straight at Val's head. We're one bump in the road away from him, like shooting Marvin in the face. And we're going to compare this later to Bert's gun handling methods.
So, back in perfection, everyone has gathered at Chang's. When Val and Earl pull up, we discover the cause of their stalling earlier. The snake like creature is wrapped around their rear axle. Bert speculates that these creatures are incredibly strong and that it would take a lot of them to butcher old Fred's sheep.
There's a moment where Chang haggles with Val and Earl over how much he'll pay them for the creature remains, and this is a callback of sorts to the missing scene earlier, where he underpays them deliberately for a bunch of cattle skulls.
It turns out Bert is bang on the money as we check back in with Dr. Jim and Megan. They are working into the night, but after their generator sinks into the ground, they're attacked by the subterranean snake monsters. Jim is sucked into the earth, but Megan manages to make it to the car. It's a brief respite, though, as the car itself is slowly and terrifyingly dragged into the sand.
Man, it's a great visual
Oh, it's
of
so
that
good.
car being dragged underground backwards. And I really love the shot of the headlights kind of flashing up into the night sky before just winking out one after the other.
Oh, it's amazing. They were big fans of the desert sky, but it's such an amazing thing, isn't it? I also noted this is the first time we see the creatures spit something out, and this will obviously come into play
Ah,
later
yes,
again
the
in the film.
generator. Yeah. Yeah, this scene occurs a little later in the script, and it ends with Megan climbing out through the front window onto the front grille of the car as it sinks down, kind of like a like on a ship going down. She's kind of just staying up as long as she can.
Oh,
But
amazing.
yeah, I think
That
that's
sounds
quite
great.
cool.
So that would, yeah, it'd been such a cool visual. It's a shame they cut that out. But yeah, so back at Chang's, and the wily businessman is raking in, charging for photos with the snake monster. We learn through some expositional conversation how cut off perfection is before the idea of using Chang's horses is brought up. And guess who are the two best riders in town, Lee?
Good old Val and Earl. I mean, you brought it up already, but the dialogue here is a great means of answering those audience questions of, why don't they just go another way to escape? And this scene occurs in the script just after the scene of the worm stalking Rhonda that we saw much, much earlier on screen.
With the horses ready, Val and Earl head off, slow motion, into the sunset, promising to check in on the doctor on the way.
Yeah, I kind of put this at the end of Act One. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely agree.
Sweet. Bert and Heather are going to go look for Rhonda and get her back to town. I mean, it's easy to root for these folks because, despite their eccentricities, I mean, they're all clearly good, decent people who look out for one another and other people.
Yeah, except Melvin.
Yeah, fuck Melvin.
There's no sign of the doctor and his wife, but the muffled sound of music leads Val and Earl to discover the submerged car.
Pretty much as written, except in the script, the sand around the car is soaked with blood.
The capable cowboys ride hell for leather, passing a concrete storm drain as they ride. Suddenly, the horses freak out. They got wind of something. Remember, our heroes are still looking for giant snakes at this point. It's only when the horses are attacked from below that the penny finally drops.
Under the goddamn ground.
Oh my God, Lee, they're under the ground. Val takes a shot at one of the snake things and it retreats back into the earth. It turns out to be a bad move, though, as the earth beneath them splits and out surges a huge bus sized subterranean worm.
It's such a great creature design. I love the fact that they used the tongues only up until this point, and even for the poster to keep the actual big giant worm as a surprise, they only kind of have like the tongue coming
Mm.
up under the ground on the poster. The actual scene itself is pretty much word for word with the script, but here is the full description of the monster just to show you how well realized it is from concept to screen.
So, this is from the script. The monster is a horrendous 30-foot long eating machine. Its head is eyeless, utterly alien, covered with tough, bony plates which close together to form a corkscrew point. The cowboys stumble back towards the fence in speechless terror. The creature slides towards them, pushing through the earth like a whale through water. Now it opens its mouth, but it's like a grotesque flower, bony plates spreading open like petals, revealing a huge, slimy, fleshy, oozing orifice. And inside the mouth, a ghastly, multi-tentacled tongue. These are the snake things. Not snakes at all, but actually the horrid hooked tentacles that can shoot out 6 feet to snag their prey. The monster snorts and snuffs, throwing up plumes of dust, sounding like a horrendous pig. It sinks into the earth and charges. We see the hump of the earth move towards them, faster and faster, but then it disappears as the creature goes deeper. Val and Earl leap sideways and run along the fence. The creature goes straight and slams into a fence post from below. All we see is the fence post knocked at a crazy angle. The cowboys keep running. The creature regroups and charges after them, hitting each fence post in turn, sending weird, sinuous shockwaves along the barbed wire, making almost musical twanging sounds. Val looks back. Now, more by luck than judgment, the two draw it into the storm channel, where it smashes itself to death against the reinforced concrete. The two men are startled by Rhonda's sudden appearance. A hasty examination of the dead creature reveals the true scope and size of the thing. Rhonda speculates that it uses the barbs on its body to propel itself through the ground before something occurs to her.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite line in the whole film is here. I'll read this excerpt from the script. Earl, hey, Rhonda, you ever heard of anything like this before? Val, elbows Earl. Sure, Earl. Everybody knows about them. We just didn't tell you. I love that line. That's so good.
So their celebrations are short-lived, unfortunately, because according to Rhonda's seismographs, there are three more of these things out there.
Five, actually. In the script, there are five more.
Ah, wow, okay. But with no time to waste, they head for Rhonda's truck. We get a nice little tension breaker with Earl stepping in a prairie dog burrow, followed immediately by the sound of Rhonda's seismographs kicking into full gear. Our heroes scramble up some nearby boulders in the nick of time, barely escaping the reaches of one of the worms. Sometime later, they ponder the origins of these beasts living fossils, aliens, genetic experiments, Lee. Do we ever find out their origins, though?
Not in this movie, and I think it's much better for it. In Tremors 2, it is revealed that Rhonda's theory of them being ancient animals that predate the fossil record is actually the closest to correct one.
Ah, awesome. Any more interesting lore from the sequels?
Well, we have shriekers and ass blasters, but I think that's a rabbit hole I don't think you're quite ready for yet.
Possibly not. More time passes, and surely, Lee, the worms have given up by now. Val grabs some wood and has a poke around just to be sure. But nope, the worms are still there, just waiting, the sneaky shits. The stranded survivors deduce that the worms hunt by sound and vibration. In other words, they're going nowhere soon. Night falls, and our heroes have to take care of a little business.
In the script, poor Rhonda vocalizes the difficulty she has as a woman peeing off the rocks.
Now, the following morning finds them in the same predicament, basically. Val has given Rhonda his jacket in the night, which is very gentlemanly, I feel. A quick test shows the worms are still here, but as the two men argue over what to do, Rhonda takes the initiative and pole vaults to the nearest boulder.
Once again, Earl tries to light up a smoke here, but Val has the lighter.
Such great chemistry between these two. A few boulders later, and we make it to the truck. Such a fun sequence, Lee. The three jump together, and Rhonda gets the truck moving just as tongue snakes begin to swarm the truck.
I love the fact that Val just straight up punches one of them in the face. That is brilliant. There's a short scene in the script after this where Val and Earl and Rhonda split up to gather the rest of the townsfolk, during which Earl tries to big up Val as like a potential love interest for her.
Ah, nice one, El. Proper wingman. Good stuff. That's what we like to see. Back at Chang's, and everybody is brought up to speed on the worms and their hunting methods. Nancy is certain help will arrive soon once someone notices the road is blocked and the phone lines are down. This segues nicely into the reveal that someone has indeed come to repair the phone lines, but alas, they're already worm foodly. Back at Chang's, the survivors come up with a plan to flee to the mountains and a name for the creatures graboids.
Yeah, there's no naming of the creatures in the script, but otherwise there's only really minor differences.
Val uses a map to illustrate the creatures' attacks, and it seems they are headed right for town. Melvin fakes out a jump scare by hitting Earl with his basketball.
Fuck Melvin.
Meanwhile, Nancy is searching for Mindy. There's a great moment here where Melvin is bouncing his ball and it just whiffs straight into the ground. Back inside, after hearing yet another scream from Melvin, Earl and Val decide to kick his ass.
Amen. Amen.
Not before time, I think, Lee. But when they get outside, they find him bloodied and shaken, halfway up a telegraph pole. We get a great penny drops moment here, and then the graboids attack Lee. Everyone runs for the hills, with the majority fleeing into Chang's. There's a great moment of the creature moving beneath the building, shaking it to the foundations. Everyone holds their breath. A strange sound can be heard from outside, and it's Mindy, still pogoing, oblivious to the danger. Lee. Val heroically makes the save, but finds himself stranded on a pickup as another arriving graboid forces Earl back into the store and causes Rhonda to be entangled in barbed wire.
Things sure went from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat here, didn't they?
It certainly did. So, with Rhonda in peril, Val grabs a pickaxe and hurries to the rescue. With a now pantless Rhonda in tow, they head back to Chang's.
In the script, Val grabs a chainsaw instead, but other than that, it's all pretty close. To be honest, I'm not sure why they changed it. I mean, name me one movie that would not be improved with a chainsaw.
Sound of Music.
Oh, I strongly beg to differ.
The hills are alive with sound of chainsaws, Lee. Back on the screen, we get a tender moment between Val and Rhonda as the survivors ponder their next move.
In the script that is here, we say goodbye to Viola and her yapping dog. So check that out.
Exterior, Viola's trailer, day. Up the hill, across from Fam's vans, the old trailer looks perfectly peaceful, except for Viola's dog keeps yapping. Then we hear panicked Viola. Viola, voiceover. Quiet, quiet, you hateful thing. Interior, Fam van store, day. Everyone gazes out the windows tensely. Earl, shut up. Shut the little bastard up. Val, chuck him out the door. Val, chuck him out the door like a little hors d'oeuvre. Exterior, Viola's trailer, day. We hear a loud whap. The dog's bark simply changes to piercing yelps. It would be funny, except the trailer suddenly bucks upwards, hit from below as though by a pile driver. Again and again, the unseen creature slams into the frail structure. Viola, voiceover. Get away, get away! Oh God in heaven, please help me! The trailer is finally knocked right off its foundation. It tips over and tumbles all the way down the hill. As the dust clears, all is silent. A huge hole is torn in the trailer's floor. Viola's possessions are scattered everywhere. Interior, Fan Van store, day. Everyone stares in shock.
After poor Viola's tragic demise, we are now back in sync with the film as
The damn ice cream freezer kicks off, rattling and thumping.
yeah, it's a shame Val never fixed it earlier.
It's a damn shame, especially for Chang, who is taken by a graboid in a scene strangely reminiscent of Quint's demise in Jaws.
Yeah, he goes out in a far more gruesome fashion in the script. Check this bit. The hole in the floor is too small for Fam to fit through. As one leg goes down, the other is bent hideously backward. Fam screams and screams as jagged wood tears into him. Bones snap, ribs crack. The others grab him again but are utterly helpless. With vicious, powerful jerks, the creature yanks his mangled body down. The last thing we see is his foot, now folded back past his head, and woof, he is gone.
Everybody scrambles for high ground at this point, i.e., the roof hatch. It looks like everyone's going to make it, but then the graboid topples the shelves like dominoes, and Rhonda is sent crashing through a window.
Yeah, I really love the pacing of the script here. It gives you like a little brief respite, and then boom, boom, boom. It's one thing after another.
Thankfully, Rhonda safely scales a water tower, and with a little encouragement, Melvin takes refuge atop a tin shed.
Ah, fuck Melvin.
We check back with Bert and Heather, who have returned home after finding no trace of the creatures, which they still believe to be lurking above ground. Heather notes that the townsfolk are hiding on their roofs, so Bert checks in over the radio, which Val manages to retrieve from the store. Val tries to convince them to head to their roof, but the die-hard survivalists are having none of it. And things get worse for Heather when she turns on the bullet sander.
Yeah, I was with you on that one. According to the script, it's actually an ammo cartridge cleaner.
Right. No doubt a common thing in most American homes.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Hearing the sound of the machine, the graboids make for Bert's house, and despite arming up, they don't seem to grasp the whole underground concept. But now it's too late as a graboid bursts through the wall and takes out the bullet sander.
Oh, not the bullet sander.
The bullet sander, Lee. What are they going to do without the bullet sander? Anyway, the rooftop survivors write them off as worm food, but Bert and Heather literally back up into a solid wall of guns, which they then unload into their legless intruder.
I love this scene so much, but I can't help almost feeling sorry for the poor graboid, though.
Oh, really? I feel sorry. Elaborate on that, Lee.
Well, the poor thing it's just an animal. It has no idea of the concept of a basement. It's just cruising for a meal, chilling under the sand, when suddenly its head is outside and it's getting peppered with bullets and having its tongue shot off. I mean, survival of the fittest and all, but still,
Hashtag save the graboids.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty certain that's a kind of a plot line in one of the sequels. I'll have to check that out.
Well, either way, the Gummers shoot the holy living shit out of the poor graboid and head up to their roof. It seems like dirt has a lot of stopping power, and they're unable to slay the last two creatures. A plan is reached for Bert and Heather to go for help, but just then the graboids start testing the buildings for weaknesses, and it becomes clear that the survivors are on borrowed time. Speaking of time, it's Nestor's time as his trailer is upended and he's sucked underground to his doom.
I think it's really cool that we can still hear him screaming underground as he's being dragged away. It seems he was given the fate reserved for Viola in the script. Interesting stuff. Well, not really interesting, but random side note. Until I watched this again for the review, I'd completely forgotten that Nestor was even in this film. I genuinely thought like I'd Mandela'd myself into like until he got sucked into the tire, and then I was like, oh, now I remember he's like ass in the tire guy.
How could you forget Ass in the Tire Guy?
I know. I'm sorry, Nestor.
Just as Heather and Bert are about to ride down for the rescue, one of the surviving creatures takes out their truck. And they're pretty smart, aren't they, Lee?
Yes, but in this case, I think it was just kind of moving away, happened to move under the car and set off the alarm, which then obviously sent it into attack mode.
Ah, nice touch. Okay, new plan. Earl strikes upon the idea of using the bulldozer to drag the old iron trailer and use that to ride into the mountains. Only problem is, anyone trying to make the run to the bulldozer is dead meat.
Sweet little setup and payoff here from earlier in the film. And also, it's a bit off topic, but am I the only one thinking that perfection, even without the subterranean man-eating worms, would pretty much grind to a halt the minute Val and Earl left town? Because they seem to do pretty much everything in this town.
They do seem to carry a lot on their shoulders, don't they? It's Miguel's turn to contribute now as he comes up with an idea to use Chang's little tractor as a distraction so someone can make the run for the bulldozer.
In the script, because there are four graboids remaining, everyone works together to figure out where they all are so they can make sure it's safe to make the run. So they're all kind of like keep an eye out and probing the earth and getting responses just so they can pinpoint each of the four worms.
That's a really cool touch. Val and Earl both want to make the run, so they rock, paper, scissors. Of course, they rock, paper, scissors for the honor, and Earl wins. It's another nice touch that shows how strong the friendship is between these two, and again helps endear them to the audience.
I wish Earl was like one of my best buds.
Not Val?
Ah, God, I'm too old for Val's shenanigans. I think I'd rather just chill with Earl over a beer and put the world to rights.
Miguel starts the tractor and it's off. The graboids take off in pursuit. Val sucker punches Earl and makes the run himself. Everything looks good until the tractor flips over and cuts out, leaving Val exposed in the open. We get a great worm's eye view of them moving under the soil as they lock onto the fleeing handyman. He makes a mad dash, but he's not going to make it. In a moment of inspiration, Rhonda yells for him to be still, so he does. Things get pretty tense as the man-eating worms probe Val. They know he's out there, but they can't quite lay their tongues on him, Lee. Back in town, the survivors try to distract the worms and get their attention, and it's Rhonda who saves the day by breaking open a water pipe that gushes into the floor. Val gets his window of opportunity and makes it to the bulldozer. Once he's started the thing, he heads straight for Rhonda and scoops her off the water tower.
Yeah, I think in the script things are a tad hairier for poor Rhonda.
Exterior water tower, day. Rhonda's in big trouble. She scrambles to the high side of the water platform. The tower's going to tip over at any moment. Its roof slides off and crashes into the street. On fan vans, Miguel and Earl are tearing apart the swamp cooler, throwing pieces of it off the roof, trying to distract the creatures, but they can't compete with the noise from the water. In BG, the bulldozer rumbles towards the tower at top speed, at excruciatingly slow 8 miles per hour. The tremendously heavy water tank suddenly tears loose, sliding off its platform, nearly carrying Rhonda with it. She ends up hanging from a crossbeam as the water tank splatters like an enormous egg below, sending a small tidal wave down the street. The remains of the tower tilt crazily, nearly 45 degrees. The bulldozer grinds closer and closer. Rhonda tries to climb up, but the jostling and shuddering of the tower keeps her dangling precariously. Suddenly she falls and lands in the dirt. The creatures zero in on her. She turns wildly and leaps for the blade of the approaching bulldozer. The blade is only inches off the ground, but Val swiftly raises it, lifting Rhonda high into the air, just above the grasping tentacles. So the creatures try to latch onto the bulldozer, but it's too big and too powerful for them to restrain, and so our survivors head for Bert and Heathers, who are busy putting together some pipe bombs, as you do.
Nice. Nice. In the script, before this happens, we get a cool scene of Melvin almost getting eaten.
Yeah, fuck Melvin Lee. As the unseen creature thrashes around inside a shed, the walls topple outward and the roof drops to the ground like a pancake. Melvin has lost all self-control and just keeps screaming. Val pulls alongside, jumps down onto the tread and reaches out to Melvin. But just as they join hands, the creature hits the roof from beneath, dragging it several feet. Val is yanked off the bulldozer and lands with Melvin on the roof. The creature slams into the roof repeatedly, but the corrugated metal is both light and resilient. It bends, but the frustrated monster can't get enough bite to tear through it. Val and Melvin straddle the peak of the roof, trying desperately to hang on as it heaves up, bucking like a bronco. Earl scrambles into the bulldozer's driver's seat and heads after them at full throttle, the big diesel roaring. Melvin and Val prepare to jump onto the bulldozer, but just before it reaches them, the roof suddenly starts to slide like some mad flying carpet, carried from beneath by a creature. Val hangs on like a rodeo rider, struggling to keep fear-crazed Melvin from stumbling off. Exterior, dirt ditch, day. The roof zigs and zags, spins and twists. Melvin and Val won't be shaken loose. Elle does his best to head it off, but it's hard to predict which way the roof will scoot next. The roof careens alongside the edge of a dirt-walled drainage ditch, then suddenly skitters sideways and plunges over the edge. Melvin and Val tumble to the bottom. As they jump to their feet, Val, "We got about 3 seconds!" Val sees, almost right above them, an exposed pipe which spans the ditch. He shoves Melvin towards it. They leap up and grab the pipe, pulling their legs up as high as they can. An instant later, the creature blasts through one wall of the ditch, roars past beneath them, and burrows into the opposite wall. Earl brings the bulldozer to a thundering stop next to them. So back in the film, after stopping to pick up the gummers and a fair portion of their arsenal, the survivors head for the mountains. They can't afford to dally because, as Bert tells us, every time he stops, they start digging the ground out from under him.
Yeah, I mean, those worms, they are smart, no two ways about it. I'm going to put the start of Act 3 anywhere kind of around this point. What do you say, my friend?
Yeah, I'd agree. Everyone's together. They've all tooled up and they've got a plan, and the plans, the plan's in place. So yeah, I'd totally agree with that. So, with everyone on board, the survivors head to the mountains. It's a long but seemingly uneventful ride until finally salvation is in sight.
And we're pretty much right back where we started the film. You see the rocks and the cliff?
Yep, it's awesome. The graboids are up to something though, Lee. There's clouds of dust puffing up off to the side of the road. Suddenly, the road caves in and the bulldozer topples nose first into a pit. Everybody scrambles to the trailer as the monsters start to pull it into the earth.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much on par with the script. Although we get a cool shot of the graboids piling up dirt from the tunnel they're digging. That's what the dust plumes were. I guess they cut it because it just kind of gives away the trap before it was sprung.
Yeah, it makes sense. Would have been a cool visual, though, I think. Anyway, after shooting at them with no effect, Bert tosses one of his pipe bombs. The resulting explosion sends the monsters tuttling for the hills. Rhonda speculates that the explosions hurt the monsters as they are sensitive to sound, and comes up with a plan to use the bombs to drive the monsters away while they run for the rocks. Melvin is freaking out, but Bert offers him a large handgun to buck him up. The plan works, and they make it to the rocks in the nick of time.
Nice. You remember I was saying earlier about Bert's firearm handling? See, here he knows he gave Melvin an empty gun, but on retrieving it from him, he still checks to make sure it's empty before he stashes it away, just like a real firearms expert would, I assume.
Now, tensions are running high as the survivors realize that despite their momentary salvation, they are still stuck between a rock and a hard place. Bert laments that rather than starve, he'd light up one of his bombs and walk out there to be eaten. Dude, I love that speech from him. It's so good. Which gives Earl an idea, Lee. It's graboid fishing time.
Graboid fishing.
They use thrown rocks to lure one of the monsters in, and Bert readies the fuse.
Great little bit of dialogue here from Bert. Earl, what the hell is that anyway? Bert, cannon fuse. Earl, yeah, but what did you use it for? Bert, matter of factly, my cannon. Also note again how Earl goes to light the fuse, but Val has the lighter.
Now, one of the monsters takes the bait, and boom, it's graboid soup.
Nice. One down, one to go.
With only old Stumpy left, Val sends out another pipe bomb. It looks like the creature takes the bait, but their wily nemesis is not so easily fooled. It spits out the bomb right back at them, causing an explosion that sends Val, Earl, and Rhonda flying off the rocks.
Yeah, old Stumpy should play for the NBA because that shot was like one in a million.
Stumpy got some skills, Lee. Stumpy got skills. They try to make it back, but the creature heads them off. It probes the ground for them as the survivors on the rocks cause a distraction. It seemingly takes the bait, but Val knows better, Lee. Knows better this time. The thing is trying to trick them. Again, sneaky shit. Everybody wants him to throw the last bomb, but Val has a plan. He takes off running with Earl in hot pursuit.
Yeah, things are a little bit different in the script as there are still three of the monsters left on the page. Instead of pretending to leave, they instead keep probing the surface with their massive heads, trying to put the prey off balance in order for them to make some noise. It's also cool to note at this time neither Val nor Earl have the lighter. This time Rhonda does.
Yeah, she's one of the boys now, Lee. Rhonda joins the boys running toward the cliff. They light the final bomb and toss it just behind old Stumpy. It detonates, and the noise drives the agonized animal through the cliff face and plummeting to its death.
Nice. All as in the script, with the obvious exception that, of course, it's three graboids for the price of one.
Sometime later, Val and Earl have their truck fixed up. Rhonda stops by for an awkward goodbye. There's some will they, won't they going on here between Val and Rhonda before he finally chases after her and lands the big smooch as Reba McEntire sings us out with the credits.
Nice. In the script, Val doesn't rack up the courage to kiss her, so in a stroke of inspiration, Earl declares he's going to make a move on her instead, and then the two drive off after Rhonda while rock paper scissoring for her hand. Interestingly, a similar scene was filmed where the two men drive away, but realize Rhonda still has their lighter, so they head back. But in test screenings, audiences really wanted that kiss, so therefore a new ending was shot.
Absolutely. I think it makes the ending.
Yeah.
That's the way to end a movie. And that was Tremors. Such a great movie, so much fun. Silly, what's your standout from the script?
For me, it's hands down the chemistry between Val and Earl. I mean, it's clear on the page and it translates so well to the screen. I mentioned before, I think about them being like two halves of a whole. I mean, they're never separated on screen for more than a few moments, and they just carry the film so well, I think. I mean, how about you?
Yeah, I'd agree. I really enjoyed some of the descriptive passages between the dialogue. I thought they were, just great at maintaining the pace and the tone of the film, and they're really enjoyable to read. But I think you're right. Like the chemistry between Val and Earl is really evident just from reading the scripts, and it gives Ward and Bacon so much material to work with.
Nice, nice.
So, what have you learned from this script, Lee? Is there any lessons that you'll take forward, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this script is a great example of a fluid dynamic. Characters encounter a problem, characters solve problem, solution creates another problem, and so forth until there are no more problems left to solve. You know, it's screenwriting at its most basic and also most effective. I mean, and this is especially clear from the scene where the monsters attack the town onwards.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, I think. I think you're right. The sort of the characters are presented with a problem and then solve a problem and then a new problem is created. It's amazing and it's a great lesson for anyone who's interested in screenwriting to study and to think about and sort of try and, incorporate into their own work. I myself, I mean, I really love some of the character intros. I thought they were really kind of short and really pithy, but totally on the nose. And, it gives you a great sense of who the characters are with really not like a lot of script real estate used, not a lot of words used. And I think that sort of stuff is really great for actors to latch onto, but also provides designers, tasked with bringing the script to life, with a lot of inspiration to work with.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah, I like that.
So before we sign off this week, I have to ask you, before you mentioned shriekers and arse blasters, I need you, Lee, I need you to elaborate on that. My mind is going to some weird places.
Okay, man. I mean, you sure?
Yep, I'm on it. Go for it.
Okay, all right. You asked for it. So in Tremors, we are introduced to the graboid, aka the Cadirus americana. But these giant subterranean worms are only one stage in the creature's life cycle. After gorging itself on food, the graboid will die, but from its carcass will emerge 3 to 6 bipedal creatures known as shriekers due to their piercing vocal screams, far smaller than a graboid, but much more agile and able to hunt on land, over land. The shriekers work in packs to take down their prey using thermal imagery rather than sound and vibration in order to hunt.
Jesus.
Yeah, oh, it gets better, it gets better. At some point, the Shrieker will shed its outer husk and emerge as the final stage of Caderus americana's life cycle, the Ass Blaster. Similar in appearance to a Shrieker, the Ass Blaster possesses small membranous wings that
They can fly, Lee. Tell me that they can fly.
no, instead, the Ass Blaster releases a volatile chemical from its abdomen, which, when mixed, produces a small explosion which propels the creature short distances, which it uses its wings to help navigate. These creatures are also capable of laying eggs, which, when hatched, will grow up to become graboids.
I mean, it's fascinating biology, Lee. To be honest, I feel like anything I'm going to say is going to dilute the image of an ass blaster producing small explosions of volatile chemicals.
That's not even mentioning the African and Arctic graboid variants and the results of careless genetic manipulation, which run wild on.
And I'm done.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So that about wraps it up for this week. What's on the agenda for next time, Lee?
Next time, we are going to be taking a closer look at one of my favorite horror movies from the last decade, It Follows.
Whoa, that's going to be good. That's going to be a good one. So it's a time for a little bit of shameless self-promotion now. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit like and subscribe, and obviously go and check out our socials.
We also have links to the scripts we've looked at in our show notes.
So until next time, do take care.
Keep on writing those scares.